What is going on, mother truckers? Dr. Shiz is in the house. Class is in session. Sit down, pull up a chair, sit nice and ladylike. It's time. Let's jump right into the video. So in this video, a little bit different from anything I've done before. I'm not typically PowerPoint spreadsheet guy. As a collector of PSA and CGC cards, I wanted to kind of put this together. I was putting this together kind of in the background. Wasn't planning on really doing a video, but here I am doing one. Figure I'd share some of the data with you, some of the findings, and just kind of hone in on some of the videos I had been discussing earlier, why I'm collecting more CGC stuff now-ish going forward versus some of the more expensive PSA slabs. And let's just jump into it, shall we? Yes, I'm still here, still up in the corner. Hi, really small up here. So this right here, first edition Neo Genesis pop report. We have CGC first edition and PSA first edition Neo Genesis on the right, stacked up side by side, card for card. Wanted to compare the populations of each card and have them side by side, and then I color coordinated it. So all the ones in green are an easier gem rate versus the ones in the red. So as we could see, and similar to what was being discussed in Pokemon Classic's recent video, shout out to him, go check it out. Some of the Neo cards for sure have way easier gem rates, as he had proven in his video, as we're seeing on this screen. You're seeing in total at the bottom here, we totaled it out roughly 10% gem rate for Neo Genesis cards, whereas it's like half. It's literally half it at PSA. I 100% do believe that CGC is a little bit more lenient on some of these print lines and stuff like that. But I gotta say, CGC or first edition Neo Genesis, the Neo sets in general were some of the best printed cards as far as cardstock quality goes. Some of the cleanest cards, way better than most of the prior stuff. I'm talking the gym sets, the Shadowless, the First Ed base, the Fossil, the Jungle, completely different, especially Neo Genesis. I tell you what, I'd see so many of these cards have like very little whitening. Though, like when you find a Gem 10 card, the whitening is zero. Like it is substantial. Like that is my feeling, is that CGC is a little bit more strict on some whitening and stuff like that. So we'll kind of get into that discussion, but right off the rip, this is not that amazing. It makes sense. Like these pop reports are crazy. Like I said, 50% on average easier. Some of them even worse. Like the Steelix is random, but also at the same point, I feel like Steelix is the one with the least amount of print lines. It's got like the darkest hollow pattern, if I'm correct. So it makes sense why it's almost the easiest PSA one to get a 10, where you look at the CGC side and it's almost in line. It's like around the average, but it just fell off when it was PSA, probably because there is maybe less print lines or less noticeable with the darker hollow pattern. So off the rip, Neo Genesis, fairly easy to grade with CGC, and we're not talking at this point. We're not going to be talking about them changing from the 9.5s to 10s. And let me just break that down for you real quick while we're at it. 10s, when I list 10s on the CGC side, that's including perfects, pristines, and just gem mint 10s. Just all of them added up, summed in one column. That's all I really care about. I want to know the 10 rate, and it breaks down. It obviously gets tougher from there, but just in the general, the gem rate as it sits, very double. It's double PSA right now when we're looking at Neo Genesis, and it's about 1/7 of the total graded cards, which will be a consistent factor. About 1/7 of the total graded cards CGC has done versus PSA, which is not too bad in the short lifetime, but I feel like a lot of cards have been graded, obviously, in the last few years. Up next, what do you think we should go into? I don't remember which one I did, to be honest. It's either first edition base, so let's talk about that for a second. First edition base set is nothing like Neo Genesis print quality. The first edition base set Some cards have print lines. Chansey, obviously, the biggest, most known one for print lines. The issue with first edition base generally is whitening. That was one of the toughest things to get around. So let's just take a look at what we got here. First edition base set, on the left, about 3% gem rate overall. On the right, PSAs, and it says Shadowless up there because I didn't change the title on the PSA one right here. But 3.9%. 3.9%. We're going to see consistencies where my dumbass did not change the title of some of those. All that matters is the one on the top. First edition base set pop report. So, on the left, it's literally 50-50. There's 8 red and 8 green. This includes all the 9.5s that just got auto bumped to 10s. I'm just going to say it. And there's 163 10s for first, and we're only looking at the hollows. There's 163 hollows, 3% gem rate with CGC. Over to PSA, 3.9% gem rate. Now, the big difference between this and Neo Genesis, there are very, very much less print lines on these cards in general. The whitening was much worse on this set. Some of the other things, it's was probably a lot graded in a different era almost. I feel like Neo Genesis, a lot of those cards didn't get graded probably back in the day. But because CGC is only 3 years old, everything, all of these cards, all the Neo cards, all of these were graded at the same time, all going through the same like grading standards. Whereas PSA, it was probably a lot of first edition base, a lot of Shadowless early on, and now then the Neo started catching on with some of the collectors, and the population report popped, obviously. And we're seeing about a sixth or a seventh again of the total graded cards. But yeah, roughly 3%. 3% versus 3.9%. So looking at the hollows, technically the CGC is tougher on the gem rates. Now let's just look at a few cards. Everybody's favorite Charizard is tougher to grade, it appears, at PSA, with giving them only a 3.06%, whereas the Charizard from CGC's got a 4.7%. It is what it is. And then you got the Chansey, the number one like toughest card to grade for first edition base set, because it is the shiniest, the best chance of having a print line. It falls right in line with kind of what we saw with the Neo set with 2.43%. But Chansey right there with it, with the Charizard at 4.5 on the CDC side, really similar. So not a whole lot there, which was interesting. 2 Nidokings got 10s, including all the 9.5s that got bumped. Only 2 of them sons of bitches. 0.82% gem rate. Pretty crazy. So, and another thing that could be factored in, of course, is all the good cards got graded early on. Now CGC's getting scraps. I mean, sure, we could have that argument all day. But I think as it stands, we're going to look at the next set here. The next one is just plain Shadowless, not first edition. Again, just all the hollows. I think it tells a pretty good picture kind of what's going on. So, Shadowless pop report, a total of 84 10s are at CGC with the hollows. PSA has 1,062. Again, we're looking at about a 1/7 the total graded CGC versus PSA. CGC has a 0.75% gem rate versus almost double over at PSA for the gem rate. This is pretty interesting. This is wild. I feel like Shadowless was printed worse than first edition base. This would show that. With the 0.75% and the 1.42% being much less than the first edition base, which is clear as day. Wasn't a real big print line issue on these. The big issue with these was whitening, corners, edges. These had a lot of problems. CGC, from what I could see in the past, has always had big issues with whitening on the backs of cards a lot of the times. PSA back in the day, we all know it, they were a lot more lenient on whitening. I don't know how that the print line thing went, but I feel like they were probably a little more lenient on that back in the day. Obviously now, fast forward today, I feel like Pokemon Classic says, if it gets a print line, you're probably not getting a 10. Feels bad. So that's when I definitely send that to CGC most of the time. But that being said, all of these cards, most of the time, are just riddled with whitening on the backs and the corners and stuff like that. So blatant. Literally 84, including all the cards that got auto bumped from 9.5 to 10. Look at the low ass percentages, averaging below 1% gem rate on the Shadowless cards. It's crazy. 15, obviously the Charizard's the highest. I feel like it could be a marketing ploy. Who knows? Oh wow, this Charizard, like, it just makes headlines when Charizards get 10s. Who knows? But then it's hilarious that Charizard on the other side is literally half of the average, which makes 0 sense. It being half of the total average because it never had a print line issue, which is really strange. It almost feels pop control-y when I see that number being so much lower than most of the rest of them. That Machamp one here is kind of an outlier because a lot of them back in the day, they didn't signify them as Shadowless. So there's a huge discrepancy there. Which ones are Shadowless and which ones aren't. But the way it sits in the pop report today, technically only 0.28% on the pop report are gem rates. So, but we all know they definitely changed the label late in the game, realized what they were doing. So this is pretty crazy to me. Seeing this, the prices and everything, it's the saturation of the recent gem cards going to market. I don't know how many Shadowless first edition base card, like, I feel like almost like probably close to half of the 84 I see on the sheet have gone for sale in the last 3 months, which is absolutely insane. Similar to here, first edition base 10s for CGC. I tell you what, the last pristine auction at Heritage, I saw probably there had to be like 20 plus there alone, and then they had there was a PWCC and a golden auction, so probably about half at least sold of the total gem population from CGC. So it's just completely saturated. What I'm just trying to show you guys here is just the difference in the gem rates between the two companies. Reason I do like some of the CD, especially at the price. Like some of the Gem 10 cards I was seeing at some of these auctions, first edition base 10, gem rate 10 cards from CGC, about a fourth the price of the PSA 10s on average in the last Heritage Pristine auction. So that was pretty crazy to me. I know a lot of PSA 10 first edition base Shadowless cards are just riddled with whitening. It is what it is. I have a handful of cards myself that have a problem. So it's not just like, we just need to think a little bit here clearly. What do you care about more in your card? That's all you need to look at. Like, if you're literally caring about the population and all of that, you probably shouldn't. You shouldn't be looking, oh, this PSA card's a pop 10. The price should be 10x. Oh, this CDC card's a pop 3 and it's a 0.7 gem rate. Oh, the price should be super increased. I feel like no. Like I've always been saying it, buy the card, not the grade. And there is way too much overlap for these PSA 10s and CGC 10s. It's insane. And then you get to the pristine level and it's just another kick in the balls. It's just another level. So let's look at the modern stuff. Let's take a look at the modern 151 Japanese pop report from PSA and CGC. So we've talked about the vintage stuff. I don't know if we made any sense of it, but it is what it is. Just giving you guys some data. Let you make your own decisions. PSA on the right. So I just picked like the bangers from the set. So I went down. Card number 200 was Venusaur, then I just went from there. Charizard, Blastoise, these are all the special character art rares, whatever they are. And these are the populations as you see them. So PSA averaged 77% gem rate, whereas CGC averaged 82%, albeit the median, the average of like the 82% over on the left, the CGC, was a lot more consistent with all the cards that were graded. It is interesting that the 2 trainer cards from PSA got god slapped, and they only have a 60% gem rate. Very interesting. I find it, I don't know. I feel like maybe those cards have print lines and the other ones don't. I have no clue. Why would those ones be getting slapped compared to the other ones? I have no clue. It makes, in my opinion, zero effing sense. But it's not like those came from a different promo box or they are coming from something. They're coming from probably the same cut sheet as the Mew EX, Zapdos EX, Alakazam EX. So very interesting to see that happen. Let me know down below. Did you see a bunch of print lines on those 2 Ultra Modern cards? I don't know. But that's definitely skewed the numbers because we're talking 60% gem rate on this Erica's Invitation Japanese card. Like, that's crazy. That's like low. That's low. As compared to the other stuff, 90%, 84, 80, 83% for some of that stuff. So it is so close to being the effing same. It's so close. Like, I picked the newest set. I wanted to pick the newest set just to show you guys, like, it's all the effing same. It is. And you could drill, the only difference, I haven't shown them to yet in this video, but going into the next slide here, I do the pristine 10s. It drills it down a little bit more. It's just tougher to get. Which is why, for my modern cards, it is why I buy CGC pristine cards, Zapdos cards. It is just what I prefer because, like, I'm a artificial whatever rarity scarcity dude. I just like a little bit tougher of a chase, especially for Japanese. I'm all set going for the 77% gem rate. Give me like the 32%. It's a little bit more scarce. And it's generally selling for the same price as a PSA 10 right now. So, for me, slam dunk on the left. I know there is some arbitrage between which ones are selling more. Sometimes the CGC 10 will sell more, but in general, I'd say on average, the CGC Gem 10s and then the Pristine 10s are selling for this. The Gem 10s are definitely selling cheaper than the PSA 10s. The Pristine 10s maybe sometimes higher, maybe sometimes less. Whoever's watching the auctions probably. But interesting. It's the only set, I'd say the only set that slapped CGC on the gem rate was the Neo Genesis with the really low gen rates for all the print lines, which is, it's just crazy to me because the Shadowless is complete 180 with the amount of whitening and damage on these cards. It's crazy that it's almost double the gem rate. So it is just giving you guys some data. Let me know down below if you enjoyed this type of video. Like I said, I'm not usually this guy. I'm not usually doing presentation slideshows, but I thought it'd be good just to show you all the data, all the holos from all these big sets. I didn't get into every Neo set. Let me know if you'd want to see it. I didn't get into E-Series. That could be interesting because E-Series didn't have a whole lot of print quality issues besides centering sometimes. So that might be interesting to see. Maybe some more middle era stuff because there is some dog shit quality there. So yeah, let me know. Podcast link down below in the description. Go check it out if you have not already. Appreciate you guys checking out the video. Have a good one. Peace.